Hey, what's up adventure riders? Welcome back to another MotoCamp adventure video. Today I'm going to be doing a sort of first impressions, almost review-ish, of the Schuberth E1 I'm wearing on my head. This is my brother's R1200 GS 2010 standard. He actually got a 2016 model, so he's letting me borrow this in the meantime until I get a new bike. So it's possible I might actually buy this bike off of him too. We'll see what happens there. Alright, let's get moving. So I'm calling this an initial impressions video rather than a review, since I've only had about 10 hours of use with this helmet so far. With that said, it's very similar to the C3 Pro, and I had a standard C3 before the Pro came out, which is also very similar. So this isn't too far of a departure from that C3. There's just a few added features that are pretty obvious on this helmet. Also, this helmet has been out for a while now, so this isn't like some brand new, like unboxing video essentially. It's just, this is the helmet that I had my eye on for a while as soon as it came out, and it was time for a new helmet after I crashed in the other one. So the first hour wearing this helmet, I basically took this bike to Santa Cruz from San Francisco, which is about an hour ride. It really started to kill my head. These helmets, just like every other helmet, is going to have a break-in period. What's interesting is that when I put this helmet on in the showroom, it felt like it fit my head like a glove, but it clearly didn't after about an hour of use. With that said, I've been commuting in it for about a week now, so maybe 20 minutes each way. It definitely fits my head a lot better than it did initially. So one of the main obvious features of this helmet over the C3 Pro is that it's got this sun visor, sun peak, I'll call it. We'll call the internal sun visor an internal sun visor, we'll call the face shield a face shield, and we'll call this a sun peak. So there's three different positions for the sun peak. Right now it's in the middle position. There are two latches on each side of it to adjust to the higher or lower position. On the highest position, it lets a lot of air through, and it actually doesn't feel too bad in terms of drag. On the lowest position, you do catch a lot of air, but of course, if you have the sun coming down, like say you're riding at night, or not riding at night, but you're riding home from some ride and you're riding into the sun or something, you can kind of just put your head down just slightly and have that visor down all the way, or sun peak rather, and it makes a huge difference. That's especially useful when you have a bunch of sand and whatnot, dust all over your face shield, because as soon as the sun hits that, it's almost impossible to see. And with that C3 that I was running, I would find myself using my hand as its own sun peak. So I've found so far, also while working at BMW, this is some experience from that and selling the helmet for about a year, I've found that the levers to change this sun peak position can get really stiff if you're not careful. So make sure you undo both before you try to move the visor up and down. I've already had it almost kind of lock up on me a little bit. I think my friend might have broke his recently, maybe trying to force it or something, but be aware of that. And guys, you can't cheat physics. I know I'm not going very fast on the highway right now because everything's backed up, but when you do start traveling at higher speeds with this visor, this sun peak, you're gonna catch air. And when you look left and look right for a shoulder, over the shoulder check when you're doing a lane change, you're gonna catch air and you're gonna feel it. You can't cheat physics. The good part is, if you really hate it, you can still remove it. However, if you think you're never going to use it, you might as well just get the C3 Pro or C4, the new one that came out. On a short topic of the C4, that doesn't really fit my head as well. They changed the shape ever so slightly from the C3 to the C3 Pro, and the C3 Pro to the C4 is different. So just be aware of that. Definitely try them all on at your local dealer or whatever. If your friend's got one, try that on. Make sure it fits your head before you drop all the money on one of these helmets, because they're not cheap. Now, the other obvious difference between this and the C3 Pro is that chin vent. So I've got the chin vent down here. I've got a visor vent that kind of channels air up and above into, like, through the visor area to defog, and I've got a top vent up here. So 3 different vents. The chin vent and the visor vent are just open and closed. The top vent has 3 positions, so there's a middle position. With that said, I pretty much keep that visor open that vent open all the time. This chin vent, I expected a little more out of it, especially riding a bike with a shorter windscreen like this. I guess it's still enough of a windscreen to not really let a lot of air through, but it's funny because I feel like that chin vent probably works best for if you're riding a sport bike or something with minimal wind protection. So with that said, I do not consider this to be a dual sport helmet. This is very much a road helmet with adventure style features to it that actually do work well, except for that chin vent, which isn't great, isn't ideal on most adventure bikes. In order to get that top vent to work best, there's actually little tabs built into the liner itself, and not many people know about this when they buy a Schuberth helmet. I had to have one of the Schuberth reps tell me this to realize it. But there's these little tabs that are put in place mostly for if you're in a really rainy area like the Pacific Northwest. These tabs kind of prevent water from coming down onto your head, and they kind of direct water backwards. However, you just close the vent up all the way. I hear a lot of people cut these tabs. So yeah, I mean, overall the venting is not perfect. What's funny is that visor vent probably pushes more air than this chin vent does. However, I will welcome it, and I did buy this helmet partially for having that. So when I am off-road, it is nice to have. With that said, the best way to vent with this helmet would be to just have your face shield open, which you can't always do. But if you're off-road or something, you can actually fit the Scott Hustle goggle into this viewport. This viewport is big enough for Scott Hustles to fit inside. I actually bought a pair. I've been testing them. They just fit. They're a very, very tight fit. I'm not sure I'd recommend that setup just because it's not ideal. However, it does work. So on that topic of the visor port, or the eye port, or whatever you want to call it, I do feel like it's a little bigger than the C3 was. I think that it's probably the same as the C3 Pro, but they did make it a little larger, I think. When you have this top sun peak all the way up, you actually don't even see it through your viewport, which tells you not so much the peripheral limitation of that viewport, but more so how far that visor comes up, because you do get a lot of peripherals out of this viewport. On the topic of that visor, while we're there, the pin lock has been unchanged seemingly from the C3 to the C3 Pro to the E1. It's pretty bad. Schuberth needs to fix that. The pin lock does fog up. I've had plenty of instances where it actually fogs in between the pin lock and the visor itself. That's not ideal. It's still better than nothing in my opinion. So I think with the addition of adding that sun peak, you are just going to have a louder helmet in general. I find that this is a lot louder than the C3 I had, although that C3 was very broken in. The cheek pads and everything kind of were very worn in, and I think it let a lot of insulation, or I guess it didn't insulate me from noise as much as a brand new helmet does. But this is pretty comparable to that normal C3 that was worn in terms of noise. One complaint I really have with this helmet is they technically moved that chin strap further forward because people were complaining about it hitting their Adam's apple. What's funny is I didn't have that complaint before with the standard C3, and wearing this helmet I do have that complaint. So I'm not sure what happened there, because this helmet technically should be sitting on my face a lot better. The cheek pads hug my cheeks a lot better. I don't understand why that's hitting my Adam's apple, but it is. I actually have like a little almost like pimple or maybe even like blister right where my Adam's apple is, just because of it, I think. While we're stopped, the internal sun visor works nicely. Goes over my glasses completely fine, just like it did before. There's not much change there, I don't think. If you're new to the Schuberth helmets, if you buy one of these, don't push up that sun visor with your thumb. It's a cable actuated sun visor, so when you push up on that, you're bound to kink the cable, and you're not going to have a fun time trying to figure that out. You might even have to send it to Schuberth to get it fixed. But yeah, the actual optics are actually really good. Probably the best I've seen out of all helmets. I haven't looked through a bunch of helmet internal sun visors, but out of the ones I have, it seems like they're very good. So overall, I'm very happy with this helmet still. Even though I have a lot of kind of minor complaints about it, they are minor for the most part. I have found that for some reason that chin strap isn't bothering me as much the more I ride with it. So I'm not sure, maybe there's just like a piece of foam that needed to kind of mold a little bit better or something, but it seems to be working better for me. Just like the last helmet I was wearing, I would always keep this sun visor down and the face shield open like this when I'm around the city if it's hot out. Right now it's 84 degrees. Definitely a very sunny day in San Francisco, surprisingly. So just to show you guys, I put that sun peak on the lowest position. So it does kind of block a lot of peripheral up top, but really you don't need to see much up there when you're riding a motorcycle, so it doesn't really matter. That's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Hope this video helps someone probably figure out a decision in terms of buying one of these helmets or avoiding one. Thanks for joining me on another Motocam Adventure video. Ride safe. Watch the review on the C3, the standard C3. It's very similar to this. I'll probably have a full review on this helmet eventually, but I'm going to put a lot more hours into it, see if anything breaks or whatever, because I don't think it's fair to give a review with 10 hours of use. Alright, take care everyone, ride safe.